the Alt Asset Allocation Podcast, exploring alternative investment opportunities available to the everyday investor. Here's your host, Ben Lakoff.
Hello and welcome to the Alt Asset Allocation Podcast. Today's interview is with Les Borsai. Les is a GP at NFT Fund from Wave Financial here in LA. I've known Les for quite some time now and know that he's quite an early adopter in the crypto world, and he is very deep in the NFT space. In this episode, we chat all about the state of the NFT market and some of the possible paths for it to go from here. I'm also starting to do a lot of these podcasts live on Twitter Spaces. I do them from my personal account at Ben Lakoff, as well as the podcast account at Invest in Alts. Hope you can join one of these and ask questions. I'm cutting out the questions for now for the podcast form, but maybe I'll add those in a bit later. But please join. They're super fun. Before you listen, please don't forget to like or subscribe to the podcast, or even better, leave a review. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel and or give the video a thumbs up. This helps more people find the podcast and really keeps this thing going. All right, enjoy this podcast episode with Les of Wave Financial on all things NFT.
Les, welcome to the Alt Asset Allocation Podcast. Excited to have you on.
I'm excited to actually do this with you because you know how much I love everything you're involved in.
Yeah, thank you, sir. It's been I've known you for a while now. I mean, I met you right in the mid of COVID. I remember we had our meeting and you had me sit about 25 feet away from you on the other side of the table for safety purposes with COVID. I'm glad that the next time we run into each other, it won't be nearly as peak fear part of COVID. That's for sure.
The funny thing is how much, in my head, everything's changed. I took a vacation this weekend, if you want to call Las Vegas a vacation. And I don't think anything's changed with the whole COVID thing, but I sure felt a lot more secure being around a bunch of drunk people.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's crazy. Wherever you are kind of varies in the how people feel about it. But yeah, no, that's for sure. Well, at risk of going off on a tangent on COVID for a long time, let's kick this thing off a little bit. Intro about you and how you got into the NFT world where you are now.
It's so funny. I've told this story a few times, and I'm wondering if it's just going to bore the shit out of people pretty soon. But the story's the story. My background was primarily in entertainment, and I think it's funny when you're a young person, all you want to do is figure out a way to get into entertainment. At least in 1988 or 1989, it was like, oh, those people are going to a Grammy show. That looks like fun. How do I get into that business? And I guess the answer in my case was you run away from home and try to figure out how to make a living by borrowing warehouses and throwing parties, because that seemed like the best way to make a living at the time. Kind of rolls into, of course, I was doing something a little bit different. So I got hired by a concert promotion company because that's what they care about, better business models. That was my first disruption, I suppose. But, as I kind of stayed in the music business and watched it change, and I watched it not really embrace innovation. And this was like, watching things like the Napster guys come around and just not be supported. People cared more about the content that they owned at these labels and wanted to defend it through holding back. And I always thought it would have been more interesting to get to the innovation quicker. And I think, the fact that it took so long to get to these streaming services was partially the fault of the labels and the people who didn't want to embrace this innovation. And that always pissed me off because I thought they should have, and they were just holding back this great thing. And it's a long answer of how you got into NFTs, but I think it's important because it really crafted my thinking. So after kind of all the music stuff, it was 2013, and I didn't want to spend $200 on Bitcoin. It was far too risky. So I said, I'm going to find another one. And I spent a lot of time kind of staying up and looking at Reddit and Reddit groups. And somehow I discovered this kid. I think his name was Jared Sims. I'd have to go back and check. But he had created this wallet called PeerCover. And it was the first XRP wallet. So I met Jared, and I ended up, getting the chance to meet Chris Larson. And somehow through just pure charm, I convinced him to let me be an advisor to Ripple, which is looking better these days, considering their position's improving. And then in 2014, I did the Ethereum pre-sale. And again, the component here that's really comparable to the music business is community. And I started building a community in crypto. And as 17 came along, and we saw all the ICOs that I, got involved in, the CryptoPunk moment happened. So I was fortunate enough to get one of those and then fortunate enough to lose it. Although my friends who I told, to buy a few did. So my first purchase was a CryptoPunk. My second purchase was a whole bunch of crypto kitties. I didn't lose those, but they weren't very good. So it's the point when people figure out the 721 standard and the crypto kitty connection, maybe there'll be some value there. But that's how I got into it. And really it was just trolling online for lots of hours and figuring out what was out there.
Oh yeah, I say doing weird crypto things with my internet friends, those late night sessions, but that's sometimes when you find out some really, really uncovered gems. Amazing backstory and kind of how you ended up where you are now. Looking at the NFT landscape, knowing that you've been through this speculative euphoria of 2017, I mean, let's start off with just the state of the NFT market right now, and this is being recorded end of March 2022.
Well, I mean, it's a good day for me to talk about the NFT market because I was fortunate enough to buy apes, and they are the gift that continues giving, and I love what they're doing. The fact that so much has happened with them over the last handful of weeks, whether it's the Larva Labs purchase, and that's really cool because it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the rights with Meebits and the punks. Obviously, ApeCoin, the thing everyone's talking about this week, the Animoco component. I mean, it's just so thought out. And I think it's just going to help the space. And it's just so great to be able to see, how different it is today from 17. I mean, I think a lot of people had questions about what this was about. And I just look at it kind of vastly different. At least I think I do. I tell myself I do. But I'm not really super interested in a lot of the one-of-ones necessarily at this point, but I'm kind of interested in the economy as a whole and the kind of vertical integration from different companies and different platforms to create this single everything we look at. And I could talk about that for hours, but I'll just pause there before I go too deep.
Yeah, no, there's a ton going on, and for the listeners, so Bored Ape Yacht Club, the company behind them, Yuga Labs, ended up buying Punks, which was like the iconic PFP of the industry, and then launched a token shortly thereafter. So I think I read somewhere that every Bored Ape purchase, so originally for 0.08 ETH, ended up being about almost $500,000. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. So because of the mutant and the ape coin and all of this, so these are real life changing sums of money for people. I'm curious, have you seen the YouTube video Line Goes Up?
Which YouTube video?
It's called either Line Goes Up or Number Goes Up. Is it like a skeptic's take on crypto and NFTs?
No, I don't really watch the skeptics take because I just hear it so often, and too much of a good thing. I mean, I try to limit my skeptics to like one a day. So no.
No, fair. Well, so for me, I'm kind of always stuck in my echo chamber of true believers, people that believe in the space. So I like to hear people that say, this whole thing is hogwash. It has a bit of like the financialization of everything, the focus on price, these valid concerns. But I'm curious, like from your perspective, being excited about the space overall, I mean, what gets you talked about the vertical integration, but where could we be like our blind spots in this utopian vision of crypto eats the world sort of thing?
I mean, look, I think the blind spots, aren't really blind spots. I think we know the volatility is an issue. We know, there's regulatory issues. We know, like other markets, there's, a ton of market issues. But I don't look at that either. And it's funny because as I've gotten a little bit older, I think I've become more of an optimist. And, being a guy, who left home I think, it's funny. I was talking to my mom. She said, I actually left home at 14 the first time. So I think, always having that kind of rebellious spirit, when we go back and kind of really take a look at like Eric Hughes and Tim May, the Cypherpunk Manifesto and all that stuff, which I really, I'm always drawn to that rebellion. And I take a look at what's happening today, and Wall Street Bets was that moment for me. The fact that someone gamified banking, or a group on Reddit, gamified banking to go long, on the hedge funds. I thought that was funny. Maybe not to some people, but I really thought it was interesting and it was funny, because I don't think we've ever seen that. A group of people, kind of the hive mind, as Jeeb says, coming together collectively to gamify banking. And when I take a look at the economy that's being built, that's why the PFP drops are so interesting to me. It's the volume of what's being dropped and the secondary sales and the airdrops. And when we take a look at that kind of expanding, into larger geographies, cross chain, it's really, really robust. So when you talk about, what are the pitfalls that hit my blind spot? Well, I kind of look at how fast innovation is happening with this kind of robust economy that's been created. So that makes me wonder pretty closely about the regulatory stuff, and if it has the ability to catch up, which it doesn't, in the same way. Because, we have layer ones here and layer twos and, all the cross chain stuff and DeFi and play to earn and stable coins and soon create to earn and everything else that's coming. And it's global. And it goes back to, your skeptics comment. The fact of the matter is everyone thought Bitcoin was going away because only, vagabonds, thieves, and terrorists used it, along with cash, of course. But the fact is, Bitcoin has had to weather some pretty incredible situations, whether it's, being illegal in China, along with other cryptocurrencies, or Mount Gox. And it seemed to weather all of that. So when you ask about the blind spots, what are the other blind spots? The technology completely breaking down. I think we know what the blind spots are. Currency's been around a long time. So
Yeah, it has. No, and you bring up a great point of the whole gamification of banking. The us versus them is super, super powerful. And I almost see crypto as like an entire movement centered around that. It's like rebuild the banking system on this more fair, decentralized version. So it's very, very powerful. And I think we should take a half step back. We talked about your background and how you got into the space, but I think highly relevant for this conversation would be a little bit more about what you're doing now with Wave Financial and in that role.
Well, it's interesting, being in entertainment, as long as I've been in entertainment, I think it's always everyone's goal who is in entertainment to get the fuck out. And I think I tried to do that for a long time. So, my friend always used to say, hey, Les, if the music business doesn't work out, don't worry, there's always the movie business. And, for me, it was just, I wanted to do something that was completely different. And it's going to sound like a joke in some ways, but finance was. Being a manager, you do think about finance for an artist and what they're doing, what their future looks like. But this was much more interesting because it was just something I'd never done. And, I partnered with David Seymour, and David Seymour had done it. And we had a friendship before, and we started a company called Wave Financial. And out of the box, we were regulated as an RIA in California and then the SEC. And really what Wave is venture funds that do early seed stage investment in blockchain and crypto companies. And we've been doing that since the end of 2017. An ecosystem fund for Cardano, which really, goes to and speaks to all of the interesting things that are happening in that world. And then treasury management for high net worths and protocols, which we've been really successful at. That's been fun. And then creating fund products, really just financial products that are, based on Bitcoin or ETH or other native tokens that are wrapped in a fund structure that are more traditional in nature. And most recently, we launched the NFT Fund, which I didn't really want to do, but my partners, Ben and Dave, said, you should really do this. And I'm like, why? I don't get it. What's it have to do with what we do? And finally, they're like, do we need to explain to you that art's an asset? You're an asset manager. And I'm like, all right. And we ended up doing it. And, in a different way, Veg Surfer and Jeebs and these guys that are so important to the whole ecosystem, do a fine job of running that product. And I mean, I'm just kind of obsessed by it because I stay up all night looking at this stuff. And I'm just fascinated with what's coming next, but these guys really do. And it was just a different way to approach it, to have these guys at the helm that really understood what was coming next and what projects are really good. And I think that's why we're having so much success. I mean, Lord knows it's not me. So,
Well, I with the NFT fund in particular, let's talk about the investment thesis or style or how that's kind of run from a fund perspective.
well, I mean, I always loved the collectible component. And so it's 70% collectibles, it's 30%, give or take, equities, liquid equities, collectible side. And this is the good thing about, being collaborative with people. I would say Veg, likes some of the fine art stuff better, which I like. I definitely love the Aversano stuff. And I definitely love some of the empowerment stuff that he's drawn to, because that's a big tenet of all this for me. To sell art in this world, because it is art too, it's about building community. And that's the thing you can't do with the traditional art world. So if you build a community, it doesn't matter who you are, you can actually do what you love. And, this is a vehicle to help you bolster your career and make some extra money. And I think that's really cool. I guess I like the projects that are a little more wacky. And I think definitely I'm a little more scattered with the things that I like. I don't know. I think I just like buying shit, to be honest with you. It might not even be that I like any of it. It's like, oh, hey, those crypto covens, they're cool. Let me get some of those. Oh, wait, those killer girlfriends? No, the small brains. It's like,
I love it.
what's up
Some of the
today?
things you hear yourself saying in the NFT
Yeah, I'm
space
53
is
years
just
old. I literally am 53 years old, and I think I just said, oh, yeah, those killer girlfriends. Yeah, they're awesome because they're like anime assassins.
Oh yeah, I found myself telling my buddy, to buy a fluff because then you can claim a thingy and that gets you a free mint into a party bear, which will unlock the burrows. And it's like,
Yeah.
what the hell did I just say, man?
Well, yeah, I guess if you're going to go totally vertical, what you forgot is ASM in the brain.
Well, yeah,
but who's
yeah,
paying
exactly.
attention?
Yeah, and then of course you'll be able to get your seeker and drug receipts. It's all
And how sad is it? Out of everything we just mentioned, I have multiples of all of them. So
it's same.
yeah.
So I'm curious, when talking to investors, like obviously there's a bit of, if they don't get it, then the fund's not for them, I'm sure. But like people over the line of, if they just don't get it, because I still have those conversations and they say, I've listened to your podcast, I know, but I just don't get it. What do you do to get them over the line?
It's exactly the opposite. And to be honest with you, I mean, tell you where my head's at, all my friends were pissed. I didn't tell them about like the wave funds. And I'm like, I didn't want to take your money. They're like, we're adults. We'll give you money if we want to give it to you. It's not your call. So, when I'm talking to someone who may or may not want to invest, it's not a pitch for me. I really don't give a shit, which is counterintuitive, but I just want to educate them, with what I know, and tell them I may be right, I may be wrong, but this is the way I see it. And I think the curiosity and the fact that I spend so much time learning and looking at what's happening is the part that really energizes people to be involved and invest. I mean, I never dreamt that this fast it would be up as much as it is, and we would have protocols invested in the fund and corporates invested. I said it twice because I still can't kind of believe it, But when I asked them, and this is a traditional company, it wasn't a crypto company, I'm like, why? And they're like, because we don't know. So it's exactly the opposite. It's what they don't know that makes them invest.
Well, and a fair bit of trust, right? Because
Yeah.
of your reputation and the fund, they recognize that you wouldn't just jump right into this thing without thinking through it a little bit more closely than number go up, we need a slice, right?
Yeah. Note to self, let them know I would just jump into it because it looked cool.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, on that topic, like everybody's a bull market genius. The NFT world is shifting, and tons of like whatever the NFT market is alive and dies every other week. But let's just pretend that it's a still raging bull market. When looking at collectibles, which make up like 70% of the fund, how do you determine investability, duration of holding, when to sell? Like what are kind
Oh,
of the
this is
investment criteria
oh
there?
God, this is an easy answer. Look, I mean, in terms of the criteria, a lot of the DNA of our company is venture. So the guys there understand diligence. You look at the team, you can get a pretty good read on a team that's had success and a team that actually has a thoughtful roadmap with good engineers. That part is kind of just arithmetic. I think when we go back to this thesis of community, when I was young, I was talking to someone about this yesterday. I got to see, you guys are all too young for this, but Nirvana at the Roxy. And, the ability to see Kurt Cobain play for 500 people before he played at the Forum was really, really cool. And it was just because I was part of a community that told me it was happening. And I do believe, like in this new world, the metaverse and IRL, and Web3, I mean, there really are no walls up. It's all of the same thing in some ways. And to live in Discord is not unlike going to some of those clubs, where you socialize, you're just doing it online, or, when you have these immersive experiences and show off your on cyber gallery. All of that is just a new way of thinking, but it's still the same behavior. We adapted during COVID really well to taking meetings on Zoom. And after a while, it felt normal. It didn't feel any different. And for someone like me that loves to isolate, it was actually better. So I think being part of the community and connecting with the people that are creating that you're drawn to is the way we really look at projects. And every now and then there'll be something we just love that we'll get involved in. And we will, at least on the PFP side, when it's a bigger drop, sometimes we'll cover the cost basis. But by nature, a collectible is something we want to hold. It's called a collectible for a reason. To get out of positions, it's really easy. Don't talk to me about it because I'm that idiot that won't sell anything ever. I think
Same.
personally, I have so many of these things now. But when we started the fund took first priority on everything. And thank God, Veg and Jeeves are there because they actually like to get out of positions and they know when to do it. And it's also a matter of just knowing what's happening, around the company and the market, what's coming next. And it's a little bit tricky because, for instance, artifacts, right? Buying those virtual sneakers and buying those sneakers because you had a punk for what, $3,000 or something, and then holding it. And then I think in the midst of it, someone offered me like 140 grand or something. And of course, that's me. I don't sell anything. And I didn't know why I was being offered so much money. Someone obviously knew something or just liked the virtual sneakers and the real sneakers. And I held on to it. And then I ended up getting 6 clones. And I just love how all that stuff's not interconnected. And, it's not about the money necessarily in that case, but it's cool to have the loyalty, because that's another thing. It's a disruption of, loyalty programs. And this younger generation, having the ability to have resources to innovate. And again, for the skeptics, there's a lot of innovation happening. And, Ben, you know about this better than anyone because you're one of those guys. And if you had to go pitch to Andreessen versus doing it the way you're doing it, I'm pretty sure I know what's easier, Ben, why don't you talk to that? Look, I'm moderating you now.
No, it's totally true. Especially with these pre-seed rounds at like
Yeah.
50 million or
Yeah.
up. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, it's a different way of thinking. So if you feel like you want to innovate and you do have this streak in you that just wants to create without the bullshit, like I don't know, it's like and having to pitch to a VC is really messed up sometimes. I had to do that when I was younger and it sucked. And then having to report in, once you got the money. God, I hated that. I mean, it's just so much fun, more fun to do things and have an audience support it, versus mom and dad with the checkbook. Like, fuck that.
That's something a lot of founders that I talk to a lot about is the the philosophy of raising funds, that it's no longer just you driving the ship. You want to pivot and do whatever else that's completely opposite from what you're doing now. You have other stakeholders who have a vested interest in
Yeah.
you and the vision that you pitch. So that's very important for people when thinking about that. That's for sure.
And I feel really bad because, like, Twitter is an example, right? I get people reaching out all the time, and as it's gotten busier, it's funny. Like, I have this like sympathetic side to it now because, like, I always used to get so pissed off with people who didn't answer, and it's like, I sent a fucking email, you didn't answer, and what I'm realizing is it's hard to answer all of them, but you want to, and I gotta be better about that because, like, I actually don't care where it comes from. I'm not that way. I just want to kind of see and hear about what people are doing, and I owe so many people emails, and I swear to God I'm going to get to them all at some point. But it does make me feel bad that you can't. But that's why they're doing things the way they're doing them. And the part that I love about all of this is, we heard for so long that the boomers, had left the worst economy in the world to this generation. I guess this generation said, "Go fuck yourself." So,
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a big part of this movement, right? This counterculture, this kind of us versus them, which
yeah.
again, I think is super, super powerful. When, when like circling back to PFPs, I mean, is there any sort of style or aesthetic that you guys at the fund are particularly drawn to, or is it just kind of based on the
Yeah,
community and team and things?
the last look when I bought that Azuki, I bought it clearly because that brown fluffy hair looked like mine when I was a kid, so I was feeling nostalgic. Yeah, there's always something you're drawn to, and there's the ones you miss, and then there's the ones you sell and you shouldn't sell. But I remember minting, World of Women, and I got rid of those, and I'm pissed. Those were great, and Fame Lady Squad it is, I guess. I kept those, but I mean, that's how it is for me. That's not how it is for the guys who, run the fund. I mean, I think they're much more methodical. They understand what the roadmap looks like. They understand what the functionality is. And the things that I'm really into now are the gala stuff, what they're doing with the play to earn and what that's going to become. I love influence. I remember just staying on that and trolling asteroids with the crew, that were NFTs. So there's a whole bunch of nostalgic stuff coming back, like Dope Wars, and everything they're doing with that's cool. And the part that really, from another philosophical standpoint, that's so cool for me to watch is, how are the Microsofts, with their acquisitions, going to compete in this world when these other companies are doing something vastly different? And is it just going to splinter the market? Probably. But I just don't see Microsoft taking crypto risk. Whereas, the risk takers throughout history, we've seen them really end up excelling because they took risks as things change.
Yeah. Although I have started to see Microsoft on two cap tables of companies that I've invested in. So they're
Well, maybe I spoke too
wading
soon.
into this space. Well, no,
Yeah.
no, I mean, just of all the companies, oddly enough, they've popped up twice now, which I thought was pretty crazy. And so the NFT space, collectibles is obviously a big focus. I'm curious with your background. I mean, what is your stance on music NFTs or in general?
That's such a loaded question for me, especially. A couple of the music things I've done. When I got re-engaged deeply into NFTs, again, it was this, convergence of ideas of what an NFT could be, and it was Avagachi that I became an advisor for, I was instrumental in putting Little Pump into that game because Little Pump was a funny meme for them. So we did Little Pump wearables, and I thought, we bought that Blau track and we got rid of it pretty quickly. We wanted to hold on to it, to be honest with you, but it was just such a good deal in such a short amount of time that we wanted the artist to benefit, kind of in the spirit of collaboration. But what I really wanted to do is a Reg D offering with it and just create, collaborations and multiple versions. Because I know a fair amount about music rights, I wanted to do things that had nothing to do with the way music business licenses music, because I thought that was interesting. And really now, I wouldn't want to do anything with it because I've spent so much time in music, but there are disruptive thoughts I have in the middle of the night that I want to do, as it relates to streaming services and rights. And that's why, going back to what we talked about earlier, the whole CryptoPunk rights and Bored Ape rights, the way they flow, it's going to be really interesting to see how you can benefit from those as the guy that owns it. So that's the stuff I'm really excited about too.
Yeah, and it's definitely still early days on a lot of that, and a lot of these things are promising the moons, but we still got to take baby steps in a number of ways, especially with regulations and the unfortunate fun things like that. I'm curious
on the regulation, you saw, they're going to be looking at NFTs, and I think it's not as hard as everyone makes it out to be. I mean, you kind of know when it crosses the line to be a security and when it's collectible. And I think that comes down to the way the investment works and, are you tokenizing it or not? And, the whole thing about it is I'm not afraid of that because I think you can color within the lines and still be really innovative. And I think it's important to have the regulatory framework mapped out, but we're not seeing that now. I guess, non-regulation is the greatest form of regulation.
Yeah, that's for sure. So everybody always says the space needs regulation. If you could wave a magic wand and change something from a regulatory standpoint, what would it be that would be like the catalyst to kind of help clarify this for people, or what do they mean when they say the space needs regulation?
Look, when you have regulation, you know exactly how to work in your field. The lines are specific. When it's left really kind of ambiguous, it creates a pause, and I think it allows for time for the regulators to kind of figure out how they want to approach it and what the next move is. But I would say that the part that concerns me is I think they're still thinking about, layer ones and stable coins. And the gap in timing, I just don't know how to catch, everything that's happening. I mean, this stuff is global. When I buy an X Rabbit or, a Ready Player Cat out of China, you know what? My wallet allows me to buy it. So, and NFTs are legal in China and cryptocurrency is not. So the global component complicates it further when we think about the regulatory components. And, look, if the worst thing in the world happened and all of a sudden someone woke up and said, NFTs are illegal here in the United States. I mean, it's really a terrible thought because where's the innovation going to happen then? Where are you pushing it? And why would you want to do that? And it's so funny because so much of it is about consumer protection. But when the SEC gets involved, the people that get really hurt are the consumers in most cases. If the companies have enough money to defend themselves, they're not getting hurt. It's the consumers that have invested in that company, whether it's a utility or security, that are getting hurt. So that's the problem, with not having clear regulatory frameworks.
Yeah, definitely agree. And there's quite a bit of game theory. If the U.S. makes it illegal and pushes it out, what happens globally? Because you can't really stamp it out. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. So it's going to happen somewhere.
Well, and I think the executive order, was a lot more positive than anyone expected. I think everyone expected, the sky was falling when that thing was coming. And it actually was relatively optimistic. And to be honest, I mean, look, we see Goldman making an announcement, we see Charles Schwab. And it's why we got in the space when we did. We knew it would happen. That was our bet. And we got into the space at the right time. And now it's happened. Everyone has position. When Ed Hahn and Al Kesh at Bank of America put out a report on cryptocurrencies, I mean, that's the most, known bank in the world. So it's definitely headed in that direction. And as you said, you said the genie left the bottle. I'll just say the train left the station, just to be different.
Big Aladdin fan, So you spend a lot of time staying up late, deep in the discords. And of course, this is not financial advice, et cetera, not expression of your fund, but you as a human, what are you obsessed with right now within the NFT space?
I'll tell you what I'm not obsessed with: Discord. I actually don't like Discord. Like, I've had more problems. Like, I'm not very good technically anyway, and Discord is just so fucking hard most of the time. And I don't want to be in Discord. I find myself kind of more trolling around OpenSea and Twitter and Telegram, all the Telegram groups. That's fun. But let's see, what did I buy recently? I love the cryptodes. I seem to keep buying those. They're just so cool. And Grumplin Human. So I love those. I'm trying to think of what else I bought. Every now and then I'll just buy some weird thing. I almost need to open up my computer to see. But I bought some of those crypto tokens that we were talking about. I like those. I like the witchiness of those. I want to get some more of those, actually. I keep threatening to go get some more World of Women. I just haven't done it yet. But I really love trying to think. The Riot Girls, Nadia's thing. Bought those recently. I mean, none of this is speculation. This is stuff that I bought. I'm not really talking about what the fund has bought, which I guess I could. The fund has definitely bought some things that are different. And I'm just trying to think. We bought the after party pass, which were interesting. I don't think I can get to the fund purchases quick enough for you, but I think I can look at mine just real quick so we can talk about what I've gotten lately.
Yeah. I've seen you tweeting about cryptodes. I figured there was some sort of speculation about
I just like
your
them.
labs. Just like the pixelated toads.
I love the pixelated toads. I wanted to, I minted those too, and I wanted to get a hoodie, and I finally got one. Look, here's something I got the other day just because I liked it, and I know nothing about this project actually. This is a personal buy, not a fun buy. But the Alpha Skulls, it's called Genesis Force. I don't know. I just really, really like those for some reason. And then I bought these Astro Girls for fun and these Ghost Friends. I mean, none of these are investments, These were just things I kind of liked and wanted to buy. The Hero Galaxy Heroes. These aren't the investments. I guess if we look at, what the fund bought, it's kind of a very different thesis. I'm not really driving what the fund purchases are most of the time, but if you look at the collectible stuff, it's frenzies and obviously the artifact stuff, and we love the Forgotten Rune Wizards. I know the fund has a bunch of those and cool cats, and yeah, I mean, a lot of interesting collectibles and a lot of interesting kind of equity deals. Is the BFF friendship bracelets. Apparently we got a lot of those.
I haven't even seen those. It's funny how some of these things just completely fly by you in the space. There's just too much to keep track of it all. But
stay up late enough and you'll see it all, and you'll just be like, oh wait, I want those. And that's the funny thing about it. I remember like early on, I bought these crypto corgis, and I think I bought like, I don't know how many I got so many of them, and they ultimately just like went to nothing. But that's the funny thing about this stuff, because you never know what's going to come back for what reason. And so it's kind of like buy what you like. And I thought they were cute. They were fun to give away as well.
I actually have a bunch of crypto corgis as well. It was at a hackathon project, and they launched them, and I just bought a bunch like that day. Presumably, I still have them all in my wallet.
I mean, okay, blame fucking Stoney. Stoney was all.
No, actually, yeah, he tweeted it. He was in the hackathon as well and tweeted it right after. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and we ended up like just buying shit tons of them, but they're cute, and you know what? That 8-bit pixel thing, is cool. So I think those might come around again.
one day. There's enough bag holders out there
Those
that
crypto
maybe.
corgis are coming. God damn it!
Yeah, one day. Well,
But
so you bring up a good point. I mean, like, presumably you're just opening up your Etherscan and checking out your recent transactions.
yeah,
Having a NFT fund, all of these transactions are on the blockchain.
hmm
So if somebody knows the fund's
hmm
address, and maybe it's
hmm
public, I should have looked in before,
I mean,
but
it's just called the non-fungible fund, and you can look at NFF_.eth,
so
and
so
yeah,
you guys are public and transparent about this. So,
yeah,
but
of
but
course.
with market moving potential buys, I mean, are you worried about people monitoring it and front
No,
running it, or?
no, because I mean, by the time we're in, we've already made the buy, and some of the bigger positions are actually investments into companies that we believe in, that we think are going to be great companies, and so no, I mean, and again, with the collectible, if we were a fund that traded NFTs, a trading fund, I mean, we're not, because I have art, I have art at home, and I don't go out and sell my art every single day. Hey guys, here's a Richard Prince. Let's sell that today. So it's like, why would we treat this any differently? If we're collecting something because we like an artist and where that artist comes from, we're going to stick to it for the most part. Now, we have sold before. It would be total bullshit if I said, we hadn't done that, but we've sometimes covered the cost basis depending upon how big the buy was. But we've done pretty significant. And then we calmed down a little bit because the market just felt a little bit off. But now it's coming back kind of in a different way. So that's the exciting part, is just kind of all the new projects that are coming.
Yeah, fascinating. It's a crazy world. I mean, with pseudonymous people and open, public, transparent blockchains,
Mm-hmm.
it's a whole nother like variable to think about as a fund. Because I mean, I just think you own X percent of the supply of some collectible and they
Yeah.
start unloading because you have a capital call or whatever. But you still might be bullish on that. But if somebody's monitoring that and could see it as a negative, it's just a whole nother thing. And full disclosure, I believe this sort of transparency would be a net good for all these funds. But
Look, I mean, we're fortunate. I think we're able to deploy in projects that we want to deploy in. It's the whole purpose of having a fund that continues to grow and continues to build. And the transparency. Look, I think if a hedge fund bought fine art, they probably have it on display somewhere. So how's it any different on the collectible side? You should be able to see what you've invested in as an LP.
yeah, I mean, talk about perfect transparency for the
Yeah,
LPs.
yeah.
And
Why?
as
Why
we,
not? And why not?
yeah,
I can't worry about bad actors. I can't worry about people that are going to take advantage of those positions. I mean, people do that, and I just have to keep my side of the street clean and know why I'm doing something. Do I want to support an artist? Do I want to support the work, or do I just love the work? Or obviously we're fiscally responsible and we're doing this to make money. I mean, that would be bullshit if we didn't say that. And there are advantages that we see because we're early. And I think it's harder to front someone who is early. And that's the point, being in the space so deeply and being early, that's where our advantage comes from.
yeah.
I mean,
Speaking of,
like knowing guys like you. I mean,
yeah,
that's the point, right? It's like when we talk about a project that you may or may not be involved in, you're not telling me because I'm going to go make that investment necessarily. But it doesn't mean I don't have the information.
yeah, totally. And thinking about this, I mean, because we are so early and we're so deep into this, I meet a lot of people, smart investor friends that recognize that there's probably something there in NFTs. They want exposure. They probably don't want to throw the minimum required for some of these funds. What sort of advice do you give somebody who's just, air quote, wants to invest in NFTs for the first time?
I mean, it's simple. It's like making any investment for the first time. What's your risk tolerance, and don't spend more than you can afford. and take a number and probably divide it down further as you're getting exposed to this. I mean, I know I've been doing it a long time, but I still mess up. I still send things off well, not too often anymore, but I still mess things up. I mean, I got to tell you, yesterday I was doing something with my ledger and it was a pain in the ass. Like, it was not connecting and it wasn't functioning. So it's like, go slow, do the easy things first, get a Coinbase and a MetaMask and start there and do it with an amount of money that you can afford to lose. Do it with $50, do it with 100 and see where it goes. Do it for 1,000. I mean,
Yes.
my second ape, I bought for 1,000. There's a lot of cool things you can buy for 1,000, and it's like, do the research, be part of communities, because I always talk about how well my 14-year-old nephew's done, but what I don't talk about often is he's been embraced by the community, the Small Brains Arbitrum community. It's really amazing, actually, and I don't help him. I don't even talk to him, but he's like figured out this way to really be connected with these projects, and he knows more about them than I do, because that's what young people do, is they get they're part of something. For me, it was music. I always go back and think about Richard Branson in London, and before Virgin really ever launched, it was just a bunch of guys in this store listening to music, smoking weed and beanbags. And this is just another version of that. It's these kids, or even older than kids, meeting each other in, an immersive environment using an Oculus Quest. It's the same thing, just different.
No, totally valid. But I guess kind of double clicking, I'm not going to let you out that easy on the getting involved. I mean, people understand, they get a little amount they want to put in, but starting the research process, a lot of my friends just end up on the OpenSea homepage and they're like, I don't know what to do here.
That's not the way I would do it. I mean, for lack of a better, idea, let's say I like fashion, I would go into Twitter and put fashion NFT, see what comes up, start reading, put my interests in. It's going to take you to the NFTs that are out there, and it's going to be connected to your interests, and that'll make it more real for you. And that's how you learn. When you see something you want, because, if you're into fashion and you happen to like Gucci, well, then there's a Gucci NFT. You're going to read about it. You're going to learn quicker. So then you might go to OpenSea to see what's for sale on a secondary, or see a drop coming. So that's the way I would do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, a lot of
Yeah,
people,
it didn't seem like that impressed you. Ben was not impressed by that answer.
I mean,
Well, you know what? It's not fair,
hard.
Ben. Ben,
No.
you've been doing this a while, okay? Just because you can, call up, Vitalik and ask him what NFTs he likes.
Oh, yeah, totally.
A lot of these kids can't. So you have to start somewhere that's digestible. They understand Twitter. You can't just, immediately take them down the rabbit hole.
Maybe that's my issue. I just, Spartan kick them right down the rabbit hole, whether they
go take them straight to optimism. Take them straight to optimism. See how that works out.
Yeah, we're just going to cross chain. Then we're going to put it here. Then we're going to use it as collateral because we don't want to sell it.
You got to remember that most of the people out there who spend less time at this, there has to be that transitional, digestible way to do it. And not every buzzword is Solana.
It's true. Well, Les, this has been awesome. We'll just wrap up the podcast portion. Where can listeners find out more about you, the fund? Where would you like to send them?
I never really thought about that. I guess Twitter is the best place, and I got to be better about answering. But that it's Twitter until it's Lens.
Yeah, right.
Wait, was that too deep?
Well, most people went right over their head, but I got you.
All right. Well, at least you got me.
And well, I mean, you've got the Twitter, the verified check mark. So hopefully that carries over to whatever decentralized alternative we end up on.
I doubt that it will.
Thanks, Les. Really appreciate it, man.
There you have it. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate your support. Show notes, transcript, links, and more can be found on our website at altassetallocation.com. If you'd be so kind, please share this with anyone you think might be interested or get some value from this conversation. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out. I'm always happy to hear them. Lastly, if you're on YouTube, please like the video or subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to the audio version of this, please subscribe to the podcast and or leave a review. This really helps more people find the podcast, and I really appreciate it. Thanks again, and hope you have a fantastic day. Happy investing. Happy investing. Happy investing. Happy investing. Happy investing. Happy investing.